Thank you everyone for having us today. I'm John Ascheman, and this is Richard Desvousges. Together we have about 44 years of collision and insurance background between the two of us. Me and Richard have actually worked together for, 12, 14 years. And then we both came over to 3M. We really appreciate your time.
Awesome.
Today we're going to be talking about being burdened with the burden of proof. And we go to our next slide.
All right, so I think our audience is probably looking at two balding guys up here and trying to do the math on 44 years, and it seems a little bit light. So, but yes, we did come from the insurance industry, and we both probably started with full heads of hair. So we're going to talk about starting off with the history of insurance and claim handling. So back in 1852, no, we're not going to go back there. Let's go back 5 years. So we're going to go back 5 years, think about how the insurance industry has really changed since the beginning of the pandemic. We both held a field adjuster role as about 5-7 years ago. And before we shifted into being office staff and virtual adjusters and then virtual claim handlers and managers in that space, we saw, and you're seeing this too, appraisers, insurance estimators are just not coming to your shops. So it's really shifted to a virtual environment. We saw huge staffing model changes with the insurance companies. So many adjusters have either let go or restructured. So a lot has happened there. And the electronic claim handling is here. So whether that's through a person or we actually have AI starting your estimates for you. So you see those photograph estimate apps, someone's kicking off an estimate for you. It might not even be a person. So we see a lot change in the last 5 years.
With those changes, we've seen a big shift in the production to office staff. I would say 20 years ago when I was in the body shop, we may have had like 4 technicians per front office person. And I'm sure as we've all seen it go along and you're dealing with more and more insurance work, you're shifting closer to a 1-to-1 ratio between body techs or just production and front office. With that, we have an increased administrative data. You're sending in way more things than you ever had to. You're taking more pictures. You're marking cars more, using zebra grids to show the size of dents, everything you can to document for an insurance company. Well, some of the good things you get that is you do get an increased control of your repair. And sometimes it's hard to see it that way because you're like, man, I didn't have to do all this work. 5 years ago, this was a lot simpler to handle all these claims. And now we have all this to do, but insurance companies are starting to pay more because they're relying on you guys to document everything, and that's the burden of proof that you've had to deal with. A lot of these things are like appraiser level decisions. You know, as you can go through, and I'm sure you've had those conversations with insurance companies, but when you can talk about the P pages or the motor guide to estimating or the database reference manuals, and you can quote things from the DEG or OEM required position statements, anything from ICAR, all those items are what you really need to bring to an insurance company that when you had adjusters coming out and you were working face-to-face, you didn't really get into that as much as you do now. Now you have all of this information, you can provide it, and you can get paid for a lot more things than you used to.
So this is a burden. It is a burden that everyone bears. A lot of the admin work has gone from insurance to come to you guys. So that's why you're going one-to-one with a lot of your technician and office staff. But it's also a really great opportunity for you to really build profitability within your shops. So believe it or not, adjusters, want to talk about the adjuster a little bit. We're relatively pro-insurance. We come from insurance. We see that they're also burdened with the burden of proof. So what does that mean? I mean, it's typically not burdened. It's not personal with an insurance appraiser. So if you get a small estimate, someone signing their paycheck is telling them that, hey, you need to leave that blend off. I don't want you to pay for what you can't see. Yeah, we're not going to R&I too much here. We're not going to pay scans up front. It's business. That's who signs their paychecks. They're not able to do that. The initial estimate is always conservative, but if it's too conservative, it's up to you guys to ask, is a physical inspection the right choice? Ask for it. Say, you know, we're just too far off. Please send someone out. That's something you can do. For an insurance appraiser, this is a big one. Overpaying a claim up front is a performance issue. So we have an adjuster that is from an insurance company that's rating them too high up front, giving away too much up front. They're not following the rules. The adjuster is probably not going to last very long as an appraiser with an insurance company. One point I want to be mindful of time here, but how can I help you to support your file? It's one of my best catchphrases for you guys. So when you have an adjuster who's like, we don't pay for blends up front. We don't pay for this. We're not going to help you with that. Say, okay, well, do we agree that these things are required by the OEM? You can see it here in this statement. How can I help you to support your file? Well, and then the adjuster says, well, am I going to need pictures, invoices, photos? Say, okay, great. That's something I can work with you. Figure out how to meet them halfway. So when DB, even from conservative, we find out pretty much through the supplement process that the appraiser is really burdened with documenting their file. They have to go into creative writing and essay mode and start to make those decisions so that their higher ups and their auditors are not seeing their payment as a performance issue. So we'll talk about one more thing, reasonable and customary. The more you guys ask for it, you're going to hear no, but you continue to ask for it. There's items in the past that we've seen that have been in this industry that have been not reasonable and customary. You continue to ask for it. The more you ask for it, it's going to start to become reasonable and customary. Not with everything, but we see items moving forward.
And how can you ease the burden of proof? Honestly, you can't. We're in a new world. We're doing a lot more virtual claims. But what we can do is minimize the burden and use those opportunities to make more money and to help train those adjusters to be better.
Yeah, and this is really an opportunity to seize. So one thing we like to talk about with the burden of proof, when we work on the repair stack program, we help shops to recover for their materials and items that are just maybe the technician is using, but they're not letting the estimator know, or vice versa, the estimator isn't asking. Build talent from within with your technicians. If you recognize a technician who is really good at blueprinting a vehicle, he's got everything written down, boy, have them pre-blueprint. It's kind of a cross-functional path to getting where you need to go. Don't allow your employees to be siloed. All parties should take ownership. Where we see these things fail in the body shop with material billing or even supplement handling is the estimator might say, well, the technician didn't tell me there's anything extra, so I didn't put anything on there. Or the technician may say, well, I'm not really allowed in the front office, or the estimator doesn't come back to ask me, so I'm not going to tell him anything else. It really does happen more than we'd like to say. So incentivize that relationship, build talent from within. That back office technician, when he's ready to maybe move on to the next point in his career path, and you've recognized he's really good at identifying damage, and maybe your next estimator or blueprinter.
Some of the other things we look at are the reasonable and customary. This is literally a form that insurance companies send out when you're asking for things outside of the market. Some of you may have heard it before. You're asking for something, they say no one else has paid for it. Sometimes they haven't, and they can use that letter against the shop. But as we build more things and you guys have this burden and you can show that other people are paying for it, and you can start pushing stuff forward because they're relying on all of you to actually get the estimates completed. Their staffing models are a lot less, and things are becoming a lot more reasonable and customary because you can provide that burden of proof. We always used to say that there's no such thing as a overpaid claim, just an underdocumented one. And when we used to work with adjusters, if you could write out what you were doing, why you were doing it, share all those OEM procedures, and lay everything out, it's really hard for an insurance company to say no.
Absolutely. So yeah, do your homework, make sure you have all those items ready to go. Asking an adjuster how you can help support their file is one of the nicest ways to say, I disagree with you, but I'm going to work with you. So lay it out. If you need to lay it out in an email, verbally, have a plan ready to go. Last thing is level the playing field. Take advantage of your body shop management integrations. CCC One Open Shop is a great program. If an insurance company calls you and asks for estimate photos, kindly say no. Ask for an open shop assignment. You're calling the shots. You're in the driver's seat of that. Direct repair programs, if that's your business model, it's a great way to get that approved repair going up front, and they'll work with you on the back end. And then lastly, we work with 3M for billables invoicing. Make sure you're using a way to capture what you're using for whether it's materials, clips. Make sure you have whether it's electronic or whether it's through a form, make sure your estimators in front office or in back office know what the plan is, and make sure you're moving that forward to make sure you're not losing money on those profit centers. So thank you so much.
Thank you.